guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing a review slash recap on episode 3 of Lovecraft Country called Holy Ghost. I'm really starting to love the titles of each episode, you guys. I wonder what the next one's going to be. Before I get started on my review slash recap, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you guys never miss a video. We start off with Letty and Atticus and how they're dealing with Uncle George. See how differently everyone's dealing with his grief. They're trying to get back to some sort of normalcy in their life. We see that Atticus is still living with Hippolyta, I think her name is, and we see how she's getting very annoyed with Atticus and how he's kind of stepping on her toes with helping out around the house. You know, we saw it as he was cooking breakfast, and certain things were being done that just really irritated her spirit that she knows that Uncle George wouldn't do, like the whole coffee cup thing. All those things were starting to get to her, and then it eventually led to her asking him to leave. And then you have Letty, who we see is in church. She's looking around, everybody is up and dancing, and she's just sitting there kind of reflecting. And we hear this voiceover from a familiar Nike commercial, Nike campaign with Leomin Maldonado, and I felt like that really matched the tone of what was going on in the mood of what, it just sort of brought you into what Letty was thinking in that moment. In my personal opinion, that she felt like she felt guilt for the fact that she made it back alive and Uncle George did not. So that's why she was in the church. She was trying to find that purpose and meaning of life. What is she doing at this point in her life? What could she be doing? And that's when we learn that she purchases this house for her and her sister, not only just for them, but a boarding house for all other Black people, other Black creatives, and just kind of sort of creating a safe environment for them as well. And I think that that's what led to her finding her purpose of what she wanted to do in life. And we saw how excited she was to bring her sister through the house, and her sister's kind of like, I don't know. We see the Black Widow, the spider webs all around the house, and it just had that very eerie, gutty, raw creepiness to it that somehow Letty was looking past, and her sister was just like, yeah, I wouldn't move into that house. I loved how when Letty was walking through the house and just excited, taking pictures as everybody was moving in, it was obviously moving day. And one of the young Black ladies asked her, hey, can we, make one of the rooms a dance studio? And she's like, no, we can't, because she truly couldn't, because back then they had these things in place called installments. And that was a way to kind of keep Black people from generational wealth by making sure they pay those installments in order to own any type of housing, land, and stuff like that. That's how they made a profit off of Black people. So moving on, we see that now that Atticus was kicked out of Hippolyta's house, he's at his pop's house, who clearly has been having a hard time dealing with his brother's death. It's weird because it's like, yes, Atticus found him in episode 2, they found each other, but there's no real relationship, as if they missed each other, It was sort of like more of an obligation to find his father. But there was just really no type of bonding experience after what happened, which I get because Uncle George is dead. Everybody's dealing with it in their own way. However, you see that relationship dynamic, especially when they were getting ready to go at it with each other in the kitchen. And then Atticus just ended up leaving. But he did ask his pops if he could stay. His pops let him. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Well, it didn't happen because he ended up staying with Letty. The reunion was kind of, it was definitely awkward. I mean, it had been 3 weeks since they heard from each other, since he checked up on her. But I was happy to see them back together and hugging and her offering him a place to lay his head. But that all changed when he noticed that the neighborhood that she had moved in was a white neighborhood. We hear the horns blaring with the bricks tied to the horns, and some of the white men standing out there trying to intimidate them. You see the police car drive by. Atticus was like, you know what, maybe I'll stay. And I was like, ooh, yes, please stay, because Letty needs you. She can't handle all that on her own. So there's this really creepy scene after the whole horns blaring thing, and just sort of having to be introduced to a lot of the white neighbors who did not want Letty and any of the other Black people in their neighborhood. You have Letty sleeping in the bed, although you had to feel like, Letty, don't you know that somebody's staring at you? Like, don't you get that feeling? Everyone gets a feeling when someone's like looking at them, or the presence of someone, But no, homegirl was just asleep, hair wrapped up, rolling around in the bed, and her whole mouth is missing. Well, Letty doesn't see her, of course, but she's pulling the sheets off of Letty. Letty ends up popping up and looks out the window and opens the window and sees and hears that, the car horns still blaring and stuff. The house is really hot. She ends up going down to this creepy basement dusty, dirty, spider webs all over the place. And mind you, she just moved in, but still, oh my God, there's major cleaning that needs to be done. Well, she ends up down there, and I don't know what you call it, but she fixes that heating machine, whatever it is, and then she hears sounds and she all of a sudden feels as if somebody is there, so she kind of like checks it out. I loved how they made you feel like it was just so eerie, and I would have just ran upstairs, honestly. If I heard a sound, if I felt like somebody was there, I wouldn't even bother turning around or looking. My main focus would be the door. But anyways, we're going to skip over to the party that Letty has. It's like this housewarming party, maybe a congratulatory party. I love the music, again, just the interaction with everybody having fun at this party as Letty's trying to do, better things in her life. We kind of, as the camera pans over a lot of the people, we hear a conversation happening between, I think, 2 or 3 Black women talking about how Martin Luther King was involved with a white woman, and Letty kind of chiming in as she's going around making sure everybody's okay, pouring drinks for everyone. It was a wonderful scene, and it just shows more of a transparency to our history of things we don't normally talk about but are like talked about within our smaller circles and our smaller groups. You see that Atticus arrives in his uniform and he sees Letty dancing with this other guy, and I actually really loved that scene because Letty was having a really good time, and I think that she needed that because of all the stress that they had gone through in the second episode along their journey with losing Uncle George and all of that. So she was having fun and dancing, and I actually really enjoyed Atticus watching her and staring at her, kind of being jealous, trying to figure out what's going on between those two, because before then she had actually grabbed his hand and he just sort of like rejected her. And I guess, I don't know if maybe it's because he feels as if he doesn't deserve her in a way, but I actually like seeing that scene because I was like, well, Atticus, what are you going to do? Are you going to go over there? Or are you going to watch her just dance around with some other guy? You see that Letty goes to the bathroom and then Atticus follows behind her and they end up having a moment together. I wish the moment had have lasted a little bit longer, been a little bit more romantic than what it was, but at least it happened because I actually want them to end up being together. We see that Diana is downstairs with all the other kids and they're playing with this Ouija board, which is crazy to me. And they sell Ouija boards in toy stores. I was at a teacher store and there was a Ouija board. Those things should not be. Anyway, so they were playing with this Ouija board, trying to communicate with the spirits, which is something you should not do. Leave the dead dead. Leave them alone. Even if they're alive, leave them dead. But they were playing with this Ouija board, asking the spirit questions. And I noticed, and I don't know if a lot of people missed this or not, and the thought sort of occurred to me as I went back over the episode again for the second time. But the one kid who was asking the board or the spirit, hey, am I going to have fun this summer? That was Emmett Till. I love how they sneakily, put that in there. And it almost it was just like a chill that went down my spine as I realized that this is Emmett Till. And the board, or the spirit, answered no, that he would not have fun this summer. It was referring to the fact, sadly, the situation that led to his demise would occur during that summer. And so they end up asking the spirit a series of questions, and spirit spelled out George's name, I believe. And at the same time, I don't know if it was really George because Diana was there, and I don't think George would play like an evil game with her like that. Like, that's his daughter. Diana got upset, walked away. And then we see that Hippolyta is upstairs. I think she was upstairs and she was shouting up at the attic because she thought Diana was there, or I guess that's where she was supposed to have been. She didn't answer, but then she sees a door that only opens for certain people because white boys that broke into Letty's house was trying to have access to that same door. It didn't open for them. So the door opened for her. She was able to walk in and there was some type of golden globe of some sort. I don't know what that was all about, but it was almost as if she was under some type of spell or something because she was just so in awe of it and how beautiful it was. It didn't seem like she was really herself, but she ended up taking that home. So later on throughout the party as it's going on, we see a burning cross in front of Letty's house. So they all go out there and you see the white boys running away. Letty got so angry that she ended up grabbing a bat. A lot of the black men grabbed some rifles. She was heading to that car, or all the cars that were sitting in front of her house, and ended up just going ham on everything, busting the windows out. She went straight up Beyonce, like Beyonce's Lemonade. Hold Up, like they should have played Hold Up while she was like going through that whole rampage. But it was very nice and relieving to see that side of her. I think she needed that as well, that side where she could just express her anger and her frustration and she's not going to take any mess. She's here to stay in this neighborhood, whether if they like it or not. I love, love, love how after she was done busting up all the cars, as a team, they ended up throwing all the weapons in the back of this other car that pulled up, and the car pulls off, and then there's the police cars that come in. They knew they were ready to go to jail, but whatever, you know, you have to stand up for yourself. And I think that was a really good moment within this episode. So she ends up being in back of the police truck alone, which I was very concerned about. Like, why is she alone with this officer? But okay. But he ends up asking her, like, how were you able to afford the house? And did you hear about what happened to the people who were in the house and whatnot? And he ends up telling her about the black bodies that were found. I think it was 8 black bodies that were found underneath the house. And so she honestly doesn't know any of these things, but he's really trying to like scare her into moving out of this house. You can see that it's kind of working because she's finding out new information about this house that she didn't know before. But after dealing with the police, that's when she starts doing her research about the house. She was very concerned as to what he was telling her, because she even felt like there was something there. There were spirits there. She was being watched. So she was doing all of her research, had all this paperwork and stuff laid out at a table at a restaurant. Atticus meets her there, and she talks to Atticus about how her house is haunted. Atticus, I loved how receiving he was of that information. He didn't necessarily look at her like she was crazy or anything, or try to question what she thought to be true. He actually sat down with her and he was like, well, tell me everything. Like, what's going on? Like, what makes you think that? She was doing all of her research. She found a lot of the faces that had appeared in the photos that she had taken at the party. And of course, they weren't there at the party, but these were a lot of the ghosts that were present in these pictures, the actual people who ended up being missing, black people. So that was very creeping and mind-boggling in of itself. She mentions Anarcha, which is interesting because we all know what happened with that story with gynecology and how that sort of worked, how they were experimenting and hurting these black women without giving them any type of like medication or anything to knock them out. They would just, you know, cut them up and just do the most inhumane, unethical things to, you know, black women back in the days, all in the name of discovering gynecology. So they go back to the house. They hire this lady. I believe she was associated with more of the African spirituality. She brought a goat and she slit the goat's throat, spread the blood over the house and over their foreheads and stuff like that. And they went into the house, went into the, I guess it was another part of the basement, I want to say. That's when they formed the circle and she started doing her rituals and stuff, and they thought it had worked at first, but then it ended up not working. The spirit ended up taking over the woman's body, and her eyes turned all black. And you know, these demons are strong. So the demon was like choking Atticus, and then Atticus, and the demon ended up leaving the woman's body, entering into Atticus's body, which I was really scared for Letty at that point, because I'm like, there ain't no way that Letty can take, look, Atticus is big and strong. He got the biceps, the triceps, the everything. So when he looked at Letty, I was like, Atticus, you better not leave her alone. But at that point, I feel like Letty was so tired, so frustrated. You know, she was worn out with trying to, you know, adapt to this new environment, make changes in her life, trying to live in peace and find the meaning and purpose of life, that I no longer saw fear in her eyes. Yes, she was crying, but at the same time, I felt like she was gaining her courage in that moment. And that's when she stood up and was like, no, like you're not gonna get to me, basically, you know. So she was praying, calling up the spirits of the ghosts that were present in the house, maybe even the ancestors. I'll go ahead and say that as well. And she garnered up all of her strength and prayed this demon away, demanded that he leave the house. And the demon ended up leaving Atticus's body, and we see that he is this white man, the doctor, of which the police were associated with as well, and knew about him experimenting and kidnapping black people. So yeah, she stood up to him alongside all of the other ghosts and spirits that we saw, who were very terrifying, by the way. But all along, they were just trying to warn her of this one evil spirit who happened to be that doctor, that white doctor. So she said, get the you know what out of my house, and he ended up leaving, and thank goodness that everything was okay. I still believe that the house may be haunted. I don't know, we'll see in episode 3. but it was just crazy. Going back a little bit, we see the relationship between Letty and her sister. Now, Letty had gotten her mother's inheritance, her dead mother's inheritance. That money did not go to her sister or any of her other siblings. All along, Letty was using her sister for her money. Letty's sister kept giving her money, and Letty knew all along that she had this inheritance, but she didn't use it to pay her sister back. She didn't use it to split the inheritance with her siblings. So in that aspect, I think that Letty felt a lot of that guilt too, because her sister had addressed that, you know. She made a bad choice, it slipped out. And so her sister ended up moving out, sadly. So towards the end, we see that all is well. Letty's in her nice blue dress, looking nice. And, you know, you have all the children running around, people doing different things in the house. And you see her and this reporter walking, and she's interviewing her as they're going through the house. And she stops by what used to be her sister's room, and she told the reporter that, yeah, my sister inspired this whole thing with the boarding house and helping other Black people, Black creatives, and having them, you know, be in a safe environment to just live, to be. We're going back a little bit, but the white boys that had broken into Letty's house while all of the, you know, while the calling of the spirits and all that, the demons that were coming in and taking over the woman's, that goat woman's body, and then Atticus's body, while all that was happening, 3 white boys broke into her house, and we see that the spirits start, you know, messing them up. One of them got their heads chopped off. Yeah, all 3 of them end up, you know, dead because the spirits basically got to them before Letty and Atticus did. So the woman, they go on the elevator, and then they get off, and then the reporter asks Letty, like, did you hear about the 3 white men who were missing? Like, any word on that? She's like, Letty's like, I didn't hear about any of that. Which she didn't, because she was busy trying to get the spirits out of her house with the goat woman and Atticus. Well, we see the camera, as well as the elevator, go down to the lowest level of the house. It's not even a basement. It's like literally like below the basement, and we see the 3 white men and their bodies just laying there, along with all of the other, I think it was the 8 other bodies of the Black people who had been experimented on. It just gets me really hyped for the next episode. This episode was a lot better than the second episode. I feel like it was a lot easier to discover new things in this episode. They made it easy. I will do a review / recap of episode 4 of Lovecraft Country. So make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you don't miss that. And yeah, share your comments and thoughts down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.